There is no philosophy more misrepresented and more misused on the internet than skepticism. And it's a great shame, because there is probably no other philosophy more important for daily life and public political discourse than skepticism, especially right now, especially in the 21st century. This video is doing something unusual for my channel, although there's a lot of it going on YouTube these days. I'm directly responding to someone who wrote into me in good faith, someone who wrote in as an ex-vegan. This is someone who considers herself to have scientific attitudes. She says somewhat vaguely that she studied medical science in university. I would guess a particular profession like nursing or something. She doesn't specify, but obviously I'm going to take her at her word. She took some courses related to medical science, and she thinks she did have completely scientifically rational reasons to return to eating meat, dairy, and eggs, animal products, a non-vegan diet. The crux of her message to me, though, and again, this comes back to both broader and narrower questions of skepticism, is that in the middle of her long written comment, she says, as soon as you have a health problem, any health problem whatsoever, all questions of ethics come to an end. They stop. I'll quote her directly. Quote, "The truth hit me right in the face. When it comes to ethics, ? Ethics don't matter anymore when you lose your health." I could hardly disagree more. Suppose I were to tell you, this is my cell phone, and this is my pair of headphones I listen to for audio. And since I started plugging in these headphones to this cell phone, the battery life got shorter. And suppose you said to me, whoa, what empirical evidence do you have of this? I say, none. What peer-reviewed scientific studies do you have of this? None. What's the observational basis for this? Let's invoke Karl Popper's philosophy of science. How do you know what you think you know? I have no basis to stand on whatsoever. However, this is extremely plausible, right? This is a very large pair of headphones, and they do not have any battery. They do not have any internal source of electricity. They don't have a solar panel, right? The only source of electricity for these is the battery inside the phone. So, I started using a larger pair of headphones, and it seems as if the battery life got shorter. I deal with a lot of really hostile skepticism from people on the internet when I do live streams, when I talk to people on Discord, this sort of thing. And it really is that stupid. It really is like someone throwing some of that in your face, saying, how can you possibly come to this preposterous conclusion? Well, there are questions of plausibility. And on the other hand, I speak to people who identify as skeptics. I had one memorable debate with a guy who's actually a medical doctor and nevertheless a complete moron. A medical doctor who had a very, very high opinion of his own intelligence. And I was pointing out to him very real reasons to doubt the medical efficacy of antidepressant drugs, SSRI drugs, selective serotonin uptake reinhibitor drugs, to get the type of drug correct. And you're able to point to really worrying facts like, the original hypothesis that these drugs were built on was that the brains, the people who actually experience depression, that they have low levels of serotonin, and that has been disproven. So that was the original hypothesis, and that was debunked. So it was debunked in two different ways. One, it was proven that no, empirically, scientifically, their brains did not have low serotonin levels. And then two, when they did experiments inducing low serotonin levels, the actual symptoms these people had were not depression, not at all. They actually became very aggressive, very truculent, and they had a higher sex drive. So they had aggressive tendencies when they had low serotonin. Low serotonin is not associated with depression. It's associated with a very different set of behaviors. People who are depressed do not have low serotonin levels. That's the original hypothesis. That's been debunked. Then further, SSRIs, there are drugs that do the exact opposite, which are called SSREs. So instead of a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, you get a serotonin reuptake enhancer. So you have a drug that has the exact opposite medical effect. And when you test it on depressed people, it has the same outcome, has the same effect. So if I give you a drug that raises your blood pressure, and I have another drug that lowers your blood pressure, and they have the same effect on your depression, that's a really strong indication that this drug is not effectively treating your depression. It's very, very difficult to do that. And this guy's whole response, it was at this same level. It was like, well, show me the proof. Show me the empirical evidence. Show me a statistical study that shows that the drugs work. And of course, if you've seen on this channel, I have playlists, I have sources, I have many videos and run pretty deep. And in some of the videos, I don't even talk. I've just put together clips of experts who devoted decades of their life to this. And I ended up having to ask the guy questions like, look, okay, so this one source I've just directed you to, he has all these credentials, university professor, expert. He's done 20 years of research on this, like 8 different peer-reviewed publications. Do you think he's a fraud? Like, for what you to believe to be possible, this guy can't just be wrong or mistaken. This would have to be a fraud on an enormous level involving large-scale, well-funded university research projects, the American government, and even 60 Minutes, the TV show in the United States. So, skepticism, it should be the antidote to bullshit, but it becomes the pretext for bullshit. And these two examples, as different as they are, I think really help to frame this conversation I'm having right now with an ex-vegan. Now, this ex-vegan does have her own YouTube channel, Jutia Maria, who I believe is Polish. Okay, Jutia, you claim to have scientific attitudes towards the problem, and yet the fundamental claim you've made about your health and why you stopped being vegan is that you had hormone problems. You claim in year 3 your hormones were completely out of balance. And you also say, really vaguely, that you spent a lot of money on doctors and tests. Right? Now this implies that you actually had a medical diagnosis of a hormone problem. But that's not true, is it, Jutia? You're either lying or you're stating this in a misleading manner intentionally. When I go to your video, what do you actually say? You actually say that during the last few months on a vegan diet, so you were vegan for 3 years, I believe? Yes, 3 years. And in the last 3 months, you started to get acne. And you attributed the acne to hormonal problems, and you attributed the hormonal problems to veganism. You took a further step with no evidence and no reasoning and no plausible set of conditions for what this would be. Plausibility matters, whether we're talking about science or day-to-day activities and problems like this. Okay, plausibility matters. You started eating, I believe, chicken eggs and fish meat, right? That was the first step you took. And you felt that miraculously your acne was cured. So therefore you created this rationale in your mind looking back that the paucity of these foods, the absence of these foods in your diet was the cause of a hormone problem which you have no empirical basis for, you have no evidence for, you have no scientific basis. You didn't get a blood test showing you had hormone problems, right? You don't have a... Sorry, we just saw a YouTube video from a young woman who went through menopause at age 21. She has hormone problems. I mean, as a young woman, she's a vegan, and she just had, it's utterly changed her life. It's utterly devastating. She went in, they tested their blood. They said right away, whoa, you have a serious hormone problem. She had no period, and what do you know? She was born with a condition where basically her reproductive organs don't work properly, and it's game over for her. She assumed she'd be able to have kids. She never will be able to. That's what hormone problems are like. They can show up in a blood test, and they can show up when the doctors examine your ovaries, normally with X-ray or ultrasound, whatever it's going to be. That is not what happened to you. So I understand you say you have scientific attitudes. You say you studied medical science university to some extent. Okay? Quote, I studied in medical university. I am smart and reasonable, and yet I still could not win. Close quote. That's what you claim. But this is actually magical thinking you're engaged in, right? Acne, there can be many causes for acne. Acne does not mean hormonal problems. Hormonal problems, even if you have them, do not mean they're caused by veganism. And if your acne went away when you ate eggs and fish, okay, this is not plausible in this way, right? For that to be plausible, you would have to tell me what atom exists in fish and eggs, what chemical, what molecule exists there that does not exist in the vegan diet that would have this effect on you. Now, there are some chemicals that exist in fish and eggs, like cholesterol. Is it plausible? Does it exclude other possibilities that cholesterol is the cure for acne? Would you claim that? Is it plausible that cholesterol is the cure for a quote-unquote hormone imbalance that you made up in your own mind without evidence just because you have acne? And could it be that there were other factors? Now, again, conversely, if there were no other factors, I mean, again, I don't know your situation. Maybe you were taking the birth control pill and you stopped taking the birth control pill. I can think of all kinds of reasons why at one time in your life you might have acne and not others. But you were vegan for 3 years and you only had this problem with acne during 3 months of those 3 years. So already, in terms of science, if I said to you, I was using this for years and I had no problem, and then all of a sudden things change, that would be a different story, right? You're treating it as if there's only one possible factor that could change your health, that could give you acne, so on and so forth. So look, guys, the real moral of the story with skepticism doesn't have to do with an attitude towards technology, doesn't have to do with an attitude towards the pharmaceutical industry, modern medical science, large institutions, government institutions, so on and so forth. The fundamental lesson of skepticism is your attitude toward yourself. It's being self-critical and self-aware, step by step, what your assumptions are, when you're letting definitions slip, when you started off with goalposts in one position and then you changed them as time went on, when you've engaged in wish-fulfilling thinking, self-justifying thinking. To me, I see this most hilariously when so-called skeptics talk about free will and determinism, and they engage in all the same fallacies that true believing monotheists believe in. It's just that their version of determinism is not called God. They've made up a God with a lowercase letter g. They attribute all the same things to this. The ultimate point of skepticism is not to doubt the things of this world. It is to doubt your own judgment, your own process of reasoning. And through that doubt, to become keener in your observation of the world, keener in your observation of human nature. Because the sad fact is, we only know and measure and understand this world using human nature as our instrument. The point is not that man is the measure of all things, but that you and I, as fallible individuals, are inexorably the measurer.